Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, General Electric, UPS, and state pension problems, I'm going to be covering a couple articles from around the web dealing with some state as well as corporate problems, all the way from New Jersey to New York to Michigan and GE and UPS and so forth, and some of the things happening around that and how this topic of pensions and retirements and soon to be 401ks will be a major topic that a lot of people will be hearing more about. So before I dive into that, as always, if you're new to RTD, click the subscribe button for more RTD News updates as well as interviews. And if you also are interested in finding out more about the Rethinking the Dollar concept, feel free to visit the RTD University site where I have a list of all my interviews that I've had with several guests that help us understand what it means to rethink the dollar plus more. But other than that, let's dive into today's news. So as I mentioned, I have 6 articles I want to cover, all dealing with recent events over the last week or two in regards to what's happening in the news with pensions and things of that nature from a state and corporate level. And so briefly, as always, I'll leave the description of what the articles are down beneath this video here so you can read more about it for yourself if you're interested. So let's scan through these things briefly. And the very first one here is from Bloomberg, and it says the $31 billion hole in GE's balance sheet that keeps growing. The very next one is from the Washington Post. It says UPS will freeze pensions for thousands of non-union employees. The next one is from the New York Times, and it says New York City pensions are still in a crisis. And the next one here is from the Observer, and it says report, solving New Jersey pension crisis requires tax hikes and benefit cuts. And the next one here is from the Des Moines Register, and it says Iowa's public pension fund owes billions. Lawmakers plan to study fixes. And then the very last one here is from MLive, and it says, will changes to Michigan's pension system hurt teacher recruitment? So let's dive into the very first one. As mentioned, I'll thumb through it briefly, and then if you're interested, you can find out more for yourself. And so just to give you what's going on off rip, this is from the middle of the month of June, but it starts off with saying pension shortfall is the biggest among S&P 500 companies. Then I scroll down and give you a little bit what it says. It's a problem that Jeffrey Immelt largely ignored as he tried to appease General Electric Company's most vocal shareholders, but it might end up being one of the most costliest for John Flannery, GM's newly appointed CEO, to fix. It says at $31 billion, GE's pension shortfall is the biggest among S&P companies and 50% greater than any other corporation in the U.S. It says it's a deficit that has swelled in recent years as Immelt spent more than $45 billion on share buybacks to win over Wall Street and pacify activists like Nelson Peltz. It says part of it has to do with paltry returns that has plagued pensions across the corporate world in America at ultra low interest rates prevailed in the aftermath of the financial crisis. It says, but perhaps most importantly, GE's dilemma underscores deeper concerns about modern capitalism, all consuming focus on immediate results, which some suggest is short-sighted and could ultimately leave everyone, including shareholders themselves, worse off. So basically here it gives a graph here, just talk about appeasing Wall Street and how in the whole corporate world, because of low interest rates and cheap money, there's been more buybacks and more things to prop up the stock prices than actually contribute to the pensions and things of that nature, which is causing a major problem. So it says here, it's a clear tension, said Olivia Mitchell, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School and executive director of the Pension Research Council, says buybacks clearly use assets available not to fund the pension promise, but to make shareholders happier. So I'm going to stop right there at this article. Just give you an idea where they're at, $31 billion in the hole, and the primary concern for most corporations is to appease shareholders as opposed to fund their promises to their own current employees as well as past employees. If you're interested in finding out more about this, scroll down below. Next one, Washington Post says UPS will freeze pensions for for thousands of non-union employees. And so here it shows a man driving his truck. It says up on Wednesdays. And this came out when this come out. This was June 28th, so as last week. It says UPS on Wednesday told some workers that the company plans to freeze their pensions, joining the ranks of other large employers that are moving away from the defined benefit plans. It says UPS is notifying more than 70,000 union workers this week that the change will take place in 5 years as part of a move to reduce expenses and help curb a long-term funding shortfall. As of December, UPS was about $7 billion short of the $225.3 billion needed to pay future benefits for the workers in that plan. It says the affected workers will stop accruing pension benefits on January 1st, 2023. It says after then, they will only be able to receive pension benefits they have earned up to that point. It says UPS will switch to contributing between 5% and 8% of workers' salaries into a 401k savings plan, where workers will be responsible for deciding how the money is invested. So just to give an idea what's going on there. Once again, this whole idea of a pension, the model in and of itself was flawed. So now that it's coming to fruition that because of the monetary environment we're in, there's no way you can actually earn on the things that were set aside, nevertheless to be able to pay all the promises given out. So they're going to be encouraging more people and the future generation or the workers from this point on to take out 401ks, which is basically a self-defined plan which no one knows anything about because they're just vehicles that you are told to park your money in hopes of getting paid one day. So there will be more education needed for the 401k concept, as if that's going to be any better. But if you're interested, there's more information down below. Just feel free to read it for yourself. Next one here is from New York Times. It says New York City pensions are still in a crisis. It says in the late 1970s, and this is from New York Times, it says just one thing stood between America's biggest city and the catastrophic municipal bankruptcy, the New York City pension system. It says the crisis erupted in 1975 when the New York City has amassed a huge debt and suddenly found no one willing to lend it any money. In 1978, New York promised that its pensions would be under control in 40 years. So that was in 1978. So here it shows a little graph from 78 all the way to current times. And it says pension contributions as a share of New York City taxes. And as of this point now, we're at about a 17%, 17.2%. And it says by 2000, New York City was poised to close its pension hole in just 22 years. It says, but that year lawmakers enacted the biggest in a series of pension benefit increases. It says what happened? It says about 5 years into Mr. Bingham's 40-year schedule, the stock market took off, creating a false sense of security. It says the gains made pension funds everywhere look good, especially in New York. As a financial center, the city was packed with high earners whose income and bonuses could be taxed. It says, but contributions had grown to a higher share of the spending than in 1978. Pension contributions as a share of New York spending, and it was 11% as of this year, in comparison to 7.7 back in 1978. It says that created the illusion that the city could afford more generous pensions. So, just with that, all that happened between 1978 and now, the illusion of prosperity due to the fraudulent and false stock market led people to think that they were actually earning more or doing better off than they really actually were, which led to them not contributing enough to their pension problems, which is why they're having problems there. It says even adjusted for inflation, contributions have gone up sharply, but the shortfall remains. It says New York City pension contributions. So in 1978, it says adjusted for inflation, they were on track to be okay, but as of now, not the case. So if you're interested to find out more about this article here in more detail, feel free to scroll down below. Next one here is from the Observer. It says solving New Jersey pension crisis requires tax hikes and benefit cuts. It says here New Jersey's next governor and legislature must make cuts to retiree health costs and raise several taxes to defuse the fiscal time bomb created by inadequate payments to the public workers retirement system, according to a new policy report released on Wednesday. New Jersey's pension system is among the worst funded in the nation, with more than $135 billion in unfunded liabilities. So one of the worst in the nation. So more news on New Jersey as time unfolds. We're going to hear more about this as well. If you're interested in finding out more, feel free to click this link or just Google, New Jersey pension crisis. I'm sure a lot more articles will come up. So the very next one here is from the Des Moines Register. It says Iowa's public pension fund owes billions. Lawmakers plan to study fixes. So now they're going to study the fixes as opposed to actually, taking care of that. It says Iowa's public pensions funds are facing billions of dollars in long-term unfunded liabilities, and state lawmakers are planning to review whether they are still sustainable. It says the review is raising concerns among Democrats and union leaders who worry the Republican-controlled legislature is laying the groundwork for major changes that could hurt public employee retirement plans. Scroll down a little bit more. It says State Senator Charles Snyder from Des Moines, West Des Moines, who co-chairs the legislature's Public Retirement System Committee, said an analysis is being prepared to evaluate the true state of Iowa's public pension plans. He made it clear that no decisions have been made. The fact that we have a $7 billion unfunded liability for our state's largest pension system should be a concern to everybody. So we have $7 billion here, 153 in New Jersey, New York, another several billion. We had 31 billion from GE, and we had, I think it was 7 billion or so from UPS. So there's everyone's in a deficit, $7 or plus billion. So if you're interested in finding out more about this, feel free to scroll down below and read a little bit more for yourself. So here we have the very last article here from MLive, and this is in regards to some legislation that's currently underway or pending in the state of Michigan. It says, will changes to Michigan's pension system hurt teacher recruitment? So here, to give you an idea what's going on here, it says, as Republican lawmakers publish legislation to steer new teachers away from pensions and into 401k plans, opponents argue that the move was yet another blow to educators, giving young people one less reason to enter the profession. So it's a claim that drawn strong objections from the GOP, whose members argue young people are motivated to enter the teaching profession because of their passion for working with children, not the benefits they will receive once they leave the workforce. College of Education and 2 aspiring teachers told MLive the change to teacher retirement system, which when taken on its own is not likely to deter young people from entering the profession, but when coupled with other factors, relatively modest pay, long hours, weaker teacher tenure laws, and teacher evaluations partly tied to student test scores, says the change feeds into the narrative that public education is not a highly valued career. And so basically the idea here in Michigan, they're looking to pass a piece of legislation that will basically, starting pretty soon, the next year or two, basically anyone entering into the teaching field would not be receiving a traditional pension. It'll be more so of a hybrid pension, spun off as a 401k type of thing, where it's all solely dependent upon each individual person for themselves contributing, which is, in my opinion, the right thing to do. But the problem with a 401k is that because we're in the same monetary realm and there's not enough chance to actually earn any yield on the investment, it doesn't matter if it's a pension or 401k. At the end of the day, because of the monetary environment with 0% interest rates, there's no way you can actually grow anything anyway without taking some type of risk in the form of investing in junk bonds or things like that. So as you can see, there's going to be more and more stories on different states as things unfold, underfunded liabilities in regards to what is owed that is not even available. And we also have the whole crisis in Illinois happening right now with the veto of the governor there and just the budget not being finalized after what looks like about 3 years now. So this whole idea of pensions, 401k, retirements, all the things that the baby boomers felt and thought was going to be a secure retirement vehicle, as time unfolds, they're going to find out more and more that there's not a such thing as security in the idea of a retirement. So just want to take a minute to share what's happening in the news. Let me know your thoughts on this whole pension crisis aspect. If you have any other states or any other news that you want to hear about, feel free to let me know in the comment section. And other than that, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and enjoy your day. Thanks.